Hey everybody, this is Andy with Two Rivers Counterfeits Waterfowl Decoys, and today, as requested by all of you, we are going to be doing the hen mallard. This is a Herder's Model 72 Millennium armored, which has gotten an entirely new set of clothes. We're going to start on a bird that's already been flocked, so if you don't know what you're doing with flocking, go back and watch some of the other videos on prep and flocking. We are going to pick up right here. This bird has been flocked twice in Rust-Oleum leather brown gloss and then flocked with feather brown flocking, 2 coats. The bill has been done with Golden's Pyrrole Orange and has dried. The only other things I've done to it so far is just because I had the paint out. I had a little bit of regular brown that I needed to get rid of, so I just sprayed the breast with it's got about 1 part rusty metal primer and 4 parts brown. So it's got just a touch of that reddish tinge to it. And all I did was just lightly overspray the chest. And then I used my bare exterior latex right here to do the white on the speculum just because the paintbrush was already dirty. So I just went ahead and took care of that. And that is actually, yes, a paintbrush, not an airbrush. So, this is where you need to be if you're going to get into this video. This is where we're going to pick up, and we are going to turn in the next hour or so. We are going to turn that into this. So we're going to go over it step by step. We're going to take our time. I'm going to try and explain everything to you. So get you a pot of coffee or a hot chocolate or beverage of your choice and sit down and take some notes. And as always, if you have questions afterwards, just reach out to me. I'll be happy to help you. But this is what we're shooting for right here, so stay tuned. All right, I'm going to do my best with camera angles. I don't have a cameraman, so or I guess the gender neutral term would be cinematographer, but there's a few things that you're going to need in order to get here that are different from some of the other birds that we've done in the past if you're familiar with the program. One of those is stencils. Now, there are places that make feather stencils, but I'm not really a fan of them. I've used the vermiculation stencils on a few birds, but what I use is it's matte stencil film. I think I got it at Michael's or Hobby Lobby, someplace like that, and it's just clear plastic is all it is. And you can cut it with scissors or an X-Acto knife. And I made a couple of simple curves out of this one, and these are the edges of the feathers on the back. This is also great for those tertials on mallard drakes. You can lay it right there and spray, and that's how you get a nice clean edge on a mallard drake. And then this is actually the tip of my finger a couple of different times. So all I did was I just traced my finger and in a couple of different depths and then just cut around it. And so on the back, I can lay that down and establish a nice consistent curve with a hard stop. So I know everybody loves looking at the Drake mallards and they wonder how in the world I can get that look on the back of a Drake mallard. Well, that's exactly what that is. That is the tip of my own finger right there, all the way down. And then right there on those edges, that's what that is, right there. Nice and easy. And then back here, I'll use tape on this edge and I'll use that curved part to get the hook in the feather itself. So use that on lots of different birds, but in particular on this, that's going to help out a lot. The other thing that you're going to need, as always, is a piece of chalk. This one's been through the ringer and it's been broken several times and kicked around the shop, and I just happened to find it again. So make sure you have a piece of white chalk so that you can lay your feather groups out. And that's really important as well for this, because where you lay those chalk lines is where these highlights are going to be. You're going to need 4 colors in order to paint this bird correctly. Well, really 5 if you include the chest, which I kind of already cheated and did that ahead of time. But the chest is that mix of rusty metal primer and brown. Your highlight areas in here are the hen brown, which if you're not familiar with hen brown, it is 2 parts yellow, 2 parts leather brown, and 1 part almond. So 10 mils, 10 mils, 5 mils. some of you have seen my videos before. I just open up the can, take a paint stick, dunk it in, pull it out, wipe it on the edge of the inside of the bottle. 1, 2, 3, whatever. So I'll do like 5 and 2 or 6 and 3 of each to get my mix. It's not precise. As long as it comes out about that color, it's fine. It's not an exact science. Your dark low lights are going to be your dark brown color. 2 parts brown, 1 part black. Color we use for everything. You're going to need Createx Pearlized Blue for right back here. And then for your edging, regular straight up almond. Thinned down with naphtha to about the consistency of whole milk. And I'm going to be spraying today on about 35 to 40 psi. Of course, you're going to need flat black for your bill and, you know, white for your patch here. But, you know, that's the airbrush colors is what we're really worried about. And those are the 4 that you need for the airbrushing today. So we'll go ahead and get after it here. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to lay out our feather groups. Now on this bird, I'm going to go ahead and give you a cautionary word to the wise. And I'm going to keep referencing back to the bird that's already done just so you can see it before I do it. But you want your feathers to be big. It's way easier to paint details and all that on big feathers than it is small feathers. So, I mean, you might notice back here, there's only 3 feathers on this side. There's 4 on that side. It doesn't matter if it's exact or not. And, you know, the birds won't care. 4 on that side, 4 there, 3 there. But there's really only 1, 2, 3 major lines of feathers on both the wing and the side pocket. And then it's just kind of blended in from there. So you don't need a really busy bird in order to get that good look that you want. And if you try and make it too busy, it's going to end up looking cluttered. Your details are going to get blurred together, and the whole thing's just going to end up looking like a plate of mixed up spaghetti. So where I usually start on a bird is I'll start by establishing where the wing's going to be. And now we're going to paint a little cape on this bird. So right in here is where our cape is going to be. So we're just going to draw a baseline to kind of get me going here. Now the wing itself, where they carved this bird, is right here, which I think is a little bit high. So I'm going to come a little bit lower. So I'm about 3/4 of an inch lower, and then I'm going to hook it up so that everything flows together nicely. Then I'm going to come right back here, and I'm just going to make a big feather group there that swoops back. Then I'm going to make another big feather group, and this feather group's actually going to connect up to the chest. So I'm going to start just a tiny little bit up from the bottom, and I'm going to bring it on back and up and hook it right around my first one, right in there. And I've actually effectively created 3 now already, so there are my main 3. And I'm going to go ahead and continue this one on up into the chest and hook it around so that it connects. So that's going to be a whole chain of feathers that comes down the side of the bird. Now here, we're going to divide this into probably 2 groups of feathers. So we're going to start here, and we're going to come back and just hook it right into there. And then no, you know what, I'm just going to leave it just like that. I think that'll be fine. So if I really wanted to, I could make another little group to kind of hook down just to keep these feathers smaller, because as feathers grow on a bird, they go from small to big. So in the event that you decided to do that, and you know, say you didn't like that line, use your airbrush with no paint, but you can use it just like an eraser and get rid of your chalk. You might see a tiny little bit of residual on there, but the first time it hits the water, it's gone. So and that's why we use the chalk that we use. So I'm just going to come in here, and let's say I'll make these a little bit smaller. So I'll just hook it that way, just a tiny little bit. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, perfect. So then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to finish up this side by coming down into the chest, just making a few more little ribbons of feathers. When I get to the middle, a lot of times what I like to do in the middle is I'll just kind of create a triangle. And then I'll make another triangle inside of that. So I'll have one group of feathers that's here, and then another one that's splitting it. And that way, right there on my midline, I know about where I'm at. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. I might have cranked this head down a little bit too hard, but that's where your midline's going to be at right there. So just a little triangle. Now up on the back, what we're going to have is, remember that the feathers on a bird grow from the midline out on the wings, the way that they're tucked. So we want to have them, not all of them, but most of them. And this bird's got a good carving. Right here is where the last feather is going to be. You can't really see it on there, but again, I'll go back to my drake. And since the drakes and the hens have the same body carving in these herders, the feather I'm talking about is that one right there. There's 4 feathers that are laid in here, and you just can't see them on this one because of the darkness and the shadows. You might be able to see them on the camera, but even my good eyes can't see them. But right about there is where I'm going to stop with my feather groups, and this last one's going to be this nice big tertial feather. Might be called the scapular. I think it's the tertial. I get them confused. I have to check every so often. I get my feathers confused. The last big one is going to be its own feather, which that's that one right there. So same thing on the other side. Make them match so that we know where to stop. So this right here is going to be its own feather group. It's going to go right up into there. And you're going to have another feather group from right about here that comes up. Then you're going to have 2 more. I might even just put 2 little feathers there that come down this way. So as you can see, it's all kind of coming from the head and midline back and down. Nice little flow. So that's roughly what I'm shooting for. And that's really all that I need. I might make that, let's make that line a little bit narrower. We'll have a few little bit bigger feathers there. Bring it up just a touch. There we go. That way we got a little bit of a bigger feather there. And remember that the feathers on the wings are a little bit more pointed on a hen mallard. So you got rounder feathers down here, more pointed feathers this way. So they're kind of going to be blade shaped. Willow oak or pin oak shaped, so to speak. So that's what your bird's going to look like. And I'm going to take a second and make sure that you guys can see okay everything that I just did, because I'm zoomed in a little bit so that you guys can actually see the bird and not me. And if everything looks good, I'll go ahead and do the other side off camera so you don't have to sit there and watch me do it again, because one time is enough, and we'll get on with the important stuff. All right, everything's looking good so far. I went ahead and did the other side as well so that it matches. Same thing, 1, 2, 3 big groups, and the rest of them kind of coming off the chest. And same thing up on the wings. And everything's pretty well congruent. I'll clean it up a little bit as we go. We're going to start on the head, and the first thing you want to do is you want to tape your bill off so that you don't get overspray on your bill. So I just take this big painter's tape, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Just want to keep most of it off of there. Tear you a couple of pieces that are kind of angled, and we'll lay them up on there. You just take little bits to get the corners and such that you miss with the big pieces. That'll work. All right, so we're going to start with our hen brown color, and because we're reverse shading, normally on the hen mallards I've done before, which I don't think I've got a hen mallard video up, well, almost like on a black duck where it's lighter and you're spraying the dark colors, you're just spraying the low lights. Well, we're doing this in reverse, so the dark color is already here, so we want to preserve this dark color and just put the highlights in. So on a hen mallard, you've got, it's very tannish khaki, that hen mallard color, all in here and down through the head. And then it's much brighter right there on the fore part of the cheek, right there where the jaws meet. So we're gonna use almond there, and we're just kind of gonna blend some of the almond and hen brown together as we go. And it might take a couple of layers, and later on when you get into doing widgeon, you'll learn all about layers, because that's pretty much all widgeon are, is layers. Kind of gonna remember that they've got that dark patch right over the eye. Lighter up near the jaws. If you get a little overspray on the body, that's fine. It's not a big deal. It's not like we're painting green on the lighter colored Drake mallards where you gotta put an apron on them. On one side of your head. Now, I'm holding my airbrush back a little bit further than I normally do so that you guys can see the paint going on, because it's no fun just to look at my hands. So I got a little bit rich with that color there. Now, and the beautiful thing about doing them like this is you can come back with your dark brown and darken that back up. If you get too rich on your head, you just hit that brown a little bit and boom, there you have it. So that's the beginning of the head. Now, when I put the almond on later, because I'm poor and I've only got 3 airbrushes, these are, for what you see on the body today, with the exception of the blue, by the way, these are VL3s. They make 1s, 3s, and 5s. This is the middle grade 3s, which is what I use most of the time. It's big enough you can get some volume out of it, but small enough, especially when you pull the tips off like I do. It's got this little nose cone that goes on there, but when you get just the tips on there, if you get your air just right and your paint mix just right, it'll spray a very, very fine, thin line. So, I mean, you can make really tiny little marks with it, you know, when you get down and tight with it. So I use on the Createx, I've got the 5. I don't use a whole lot of 1s. I did earlier on in my painting career when I was a little bit less sure of myself, but so that's it. That's it for the head, and later on when we get back to the almond, we'll come back in and touch the almond up and probably overspray some more of your hen brown. But for now, that's plenty good. So what I do next is I usually start low and back and work my way forward. So I'm going to start right back here. Let me double check my camera and make sure we're good before I proceed. Oh yeah. So we're going to go ahead and basically all we're going to do is just follow the line. Follow it right on back. And because on a hen mallard, the feathers on the side are lighter than the feathers on top. So I'm going to make that line nice and thick. That'll make the side a little bit lighter colored than the top when it's all said and done. Now once we're there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and lay the actual individual feathers out. Now down here, I'm only going to put 2 feathers right here. So what I said earlier about big feathers, I meant it. I'm just going to put 2 feathers right in here. Just like that, 1, 2. That's it. That's all it needs to be there. 1, 2. Up here, I'm going to start. Most people that paint birds by hand with paint brushes, they always say to paint from the back forward. And I'm so scatterbrained, I kind of do a little bit of everything. But I find that it's easier for me, by and large, maybe just because I'm right-handed, when the bird's facing this way, to go from the front back. So I'll just kind of start right here, and I'm just going to lightly lay out a couple of feathers. And again, big feathers. Was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the whole side there? Right here, the same thing, big feathers. See, now my scatterbrain's already going in. I'm already coming from back to front just for whatever reason. It's just how my brain works. It goes in multiple directions at once. Just like such. Same thing up here. I'm going to make them smaller as I hook into the cape. Remember that everything grows, is almost like a flower. Everything grows from, this is the center of the flower here, and everything opens and blooms out from there. So now on your wings, we're going to do the same thing. Going to lay out that main group first. Now, because we're on the wings, we're going to make more of a willow shape. You can see how at the end, the last feather of the chain kind of just makes itself by coming together, and all we're doing is cutting it off. And so that's why we're doing that nice flow that we have there. And remember, they come from the midline down, so even though we've got this going this way, the last feather is going to be pointed kind of back, but everything else is gradually stepping its way back. Gives it that kind of tapered look. That's all there is to it. This last one is going to be done with almond, so we're going to leave that be for now. The other thing that you want to do while you're back here is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint the rump, and I'm going to paint it. Eventually it's going to be painted with almond because it's much lighter, but I'm going to start by just lightly going over it with hen brown, just to start lightening it up, and that'll give it a little bit of depth when we come back with the almond. And then I'm going to go ahead and paint the feathers that hook out on the part that's between the wings and the tail. And I'm just going to do a single row of overlapping round feathers. And at the end, where it meets, it's going to do a bit of a point there. Where everything comes together. We'll go ahead and finish up on the chest here. And once you get here to your little triangle of death, it's no different than anything else. You're just going to outline it. Then I'm just going to do one or two little feathers there. Keep that on rolling around. Notice I did 3 on that side. I don't know, just the way the spacing worked out. I hope somebody figures out that a duck cares. Now I'm just going to come back through. Now that I've got my basic feathers laid out, I'm going to brighten them up a little bit. This is the part that just comes with experience. The fact that I can go forwards, backwards, left, right, and create basically the same shape no matter what. And some of you might be able to, I don't think you can see all the way down here, but everywhere you look in my shop, there's like little areas where I've probably been clearing clogs in an airbrush or testing something, but anytime I'm practicing anything, it's almost always that little C feather pattern. It's always in a curve, that little C feather pattern. And if you train your hands to do that, that's where the speed comes in later on. And I never really worry about being fast, but on a long enough timeline, it does add up, because that little boy inside always wants to see his daddy, so. And his daddy wants to see him too. It's too windy to go fishing today, but I'm sure he'll kick my butt at dice poker here in a little while. My son, I don't know, I'm sure a lot of you Canadian watchers are familiar with dice poker. It was our Canadian friends up in Saskatchewan that introduced us to it. And it is a wildly addictive game and a lot of fun. Basically, it's like a cross between like bingo and Yahtzee. So you roll 5 dice and you have to, each space on this checkerboard looking board, it looks like there's little, it might be like a full house or a straight or, 2 6s and 2 4s or whatever. And you have to get 5 in a row twice. And my son can, you get 3 rolls, and you get to, each time after you roll, you get to pull a couple dice aside. If you need 3 6s or something like that, and you get 2 6s, you can pull them aside and roll the other 3 dice, or whatever. If you played Yahtzee, you know what I'm talking about. But that youngin in there, he can just come up with the most random picks, and he throws what he's looking for almost every single time. I wish I could take him to Vegas and put him on the craps table. We'd be millionaires. All right, so more or less, there's your basic layout of the bird itself. From here on in, it's all shading and highlights, and that's where she really comes to life. So we'll go ahead and we'll do the rump on this side as well to match the other side. Go ahead and we'll put our feathers back here. Just like shooting a shotgun. Over time, you get more and more used to that. Wherever your eyes go is where that paint stream will go. And there's only one way to learn it, and that's just to do it. So back here on the tail is this same kind of hen color, but it's got highlights in it. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay some rough lines down. I'm only going to put 2 or 3 tail feathers in. And then I'm going to highlight those with the almond when we come back with almond. And we'll put some spots in as well. So the inside of my feathers right here is where the back feathers and the wings on this bird are kind of peeled apart, where you can see the back feathers going down, which I really like. You guys, if you watch my videos, by now you know that I have an affinity for Herder's decoys, and there's plenty of them. They're solid, they're tough, they work, and they're easy to work with and easy to paint. and they hold their value well too. You know, I mean, these, I don't remember what I paid for these, but you know, I buy most of my stuff used and patch it up. And I'm going to be making a bunch of mallards here soon out of old 81s, which was the standard size goose and the super magnum duck. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to break our stencil out. I'm going to use the shallow end, which is, again, it's just the tip of my finger. You know, it's halfway down my fingernail is all it is. And you know, if you got bigger booger hookers, you know, use your pinky finger or whatever. This is just my index finger. But I'm just going to lay these out, and all I'm going to do is just stack them, and I'm going to hit them. I'm not going to, the feathers on the back of a hen are, again, they get bigger as they go back, so I'll space them out a little bit more as I go back. But what I usually do on a drake is I'll spray the hen on the cape, and then I'll come back with the dark brown and touch it. I'm doing the opposite here. So the dark color is already down. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this to be the main color of the feather, and the dark is going to be the tip. And I'm not going to stencil the tip. I'm just going to lay a little line of dark brown in. So all I'm going to do here is just kind of hit real light. Leaving a gap in between them. So you can kind of see how it blossoms on out. I usually, when I do this, I have the bird sitting, I have the chest between the blocks, and I drape it back so that it's sitting in my lap so that I can spray it right here. But you know, you guys won't be able to see it that way. So I'm gonna do the best I can with what I got here. Now, as you go with these stencils, you can see how far I've done. I've done maybe 15 feathers. Your paint starts to accumulate. Now over here, I've got my mineral spirits that I clean all my paintbrushes in. I'm just going to take this, just going to dunk it in there, tap it off, and use one of my shop cloths and just wipe the paint off. This is literally in the, God, I think I found the other day, the first bird I ever did was in 2017. So it's been 7 or 8 years I've been doing birds now. This is the only one of these I've ever had. So it's that old. And you can think about how many hundreds and probably thousands of birds it's done. Same stencil. What's miraculous is I haven't lost it or dropped it under the bench. But yeah, after every 15 or 20 feathers, just dunk it in there, wipe it off, and that way the paint doesn't build up and you don't end up with little paint splotches on your back either. And there you have it. Clean my stencil up, use that next time. And now we're going to get into the dark brown color. So with your dark brown, all you're going to do is right on the tip, just going to lay a little line, just a little bit of accent line. And you'll notice that what that does is almost immediately it makes it stand out, because now you've got, you hear us say in the page every now and then, 3 colors for 3D. Well, that's your third color. You've got the lighter brown under it, the super light hen color, and then this dark brown. And that's what makes your feather really stand out. Provides just a tiny little bit of relief. All I'm doing is I'm just kind of tracing along the back edge of each feather that I did. That's what your back's going to look like. So next what we're going to do is we're going to start filling in. I'm going to start filling in the dark spots on the big feathers. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a curve that comes out just inside that line, and then I'm going to put a little dot down in the middle. And then I'm going to come back again with my hen brown color, and I'm going to put the individual feather indentions in. And the last thing we'll do is we'll come through with the almond, hit it with the almond, and that's when she'll come alive. So all you're going to do here is right on the inside of each one, just going to lay down some dark, and then you're just going to put a little spot in there. Now where it's not done is where that little two-pronged blade is going to be of that hen brown. Like such. And remember that the way that you orient those lines gives you the appearance of it coming back. So that's what you want to make sure that you remember, that when we're up here, we're coming out and to the side. We're not going back towards the tail. Everything on the side down here on the side pocket goes that way. Everything on the wing comes outboard. And now you can see, even just on these little feathers right here, why I said it was so important to leave your feathers big, because you run out of room in a big hurry. Now, on the rounder ones down here, all you're going to do is just follow that edge. Just make a little loop. Because remember, your side feathers are lighter than your wing feathers. And your back feathers are your darkest. Back in here, same thing. Same thing on this side. This is the tedious part. There you go. There's your low lights. All done. Home stretch. All right. So now we're going to come back with our hen brown. We're going to put those individual feather pieces in there. These here, all these little hooks and such. And again, that's why we wanted to keep it nice and open. When you get these smaller feathers, sometimes you can only fit one in there, and that's fine. Birds won't care. It's better to have one good one than two cluttered ones. You don't do that going all the way up into the chest, just on the sides and the backs of the wings there. You got to hit them 2 or 3 times and make sure they pop nice. Sometimes your paint will get down into your flocking. It'll dry a little bit. And you can come back and hit it with a second little helping. That's what will really make it stand out. That's especially true when you're painting white on birds, especially over black, like with drake mallards. Take a moment and clean my airbrush real fast. If you haven't seen my little short on backwashing, that's what's going on right now. It just kind of blows all the crud out and some of the paint that's accumulated and whatnot. That's all the time it takes. Right back good as new. That's how it was kind of spitting and sputtering a little bit. Now it's spraying good clean lines again. Got to do that a couple times every bird. I was beginning to think I might be able to get away with it on this one, but then as soon as I thought that, it started doing it. Kind of trying to do it again already. Oh, there you go. That's all there is to it. Now I'm going to clear this brush out real quick, and we're going to get to work with our almond. And you will see as we go on with the almond that is what really makes her stand out from the crowd. All right, so we're going to start up on the face. And like I said before, the head on the hen is actually a lot lighter than most people think it is, especially right in here around the jaw area. You want to make it nice and light. You want to have a little bit of lightness over the eye, accent that kind of dark spot, and then back on the cheek. Not much, just a little bit, especially right in here. And if you overdo it, you can just come back with your hen brown here in a minute, and that's all there is to it. Not much, just a little bit, but it makes a big difference. All right, so now those lines where we drew earlier with the chalk, that's what we're going for. Going for all those lines. We'll start right here. Now remember, we don't want to completely erase that hen brown color underneath. We want it right on that edge. So right in here, just separating. Just giving it that tiny little bit of definition right there. Especially on the medial aspect of the feather. For anybody that didn't pass anatomy and physiology, medial is to the midline of the bird. You can see already how much better that is starting to stand out. Some people use white for this, but I like almond. I think the almond works the best for me. Now, I don't do nearly as much on the chest because the chest is browner on a hen mallard than most people think it is. What I will do is I'll do where we made our lines. And I'll do about every third one or so. I'll drop a little white almond in there. Paint must be getting old. Starting to gunk up on me a little bit. And like I said before, we're going to hit the rump with the almond, lighten it up a little more. We're going to do the tail. We're just going to stripe in that almond. You can use painter's tape here if you like, but I don't think it's that critical. And same thing right here on your tail feathers, on the upper end there, just very lightly. None on the back. You're gonna leave the back just like it is. That's what we're looking like. Same thing on the reverse there. Get the main feather groups. Tiniest little bit of light there. That's all it takes. Makes a huge difference. All right, there's the bulkier work right there. From here on out, it's just delicate work. So we're gonna take our stencil, our other stencil, if I can find what I did with it. There it is. And this is gonna go right along that feather there. So I'm gonna take some tape. I'm going to lay it right here so I don't overspray onto my speculum area there. I want that to stay blue. I'm just going to use one of those curved edges, whichever one matches up best. In that case, it happens to be that one right there. And all this here is going to be just almond. That's all it is. Just almond from the edges on in, but it's light as it gets to the middle. It's a light tipped feather. A little bit more than on a black duck, but that's it. You can see how that makes that nice hard edge. Same thing on the other side. Clean your stencil. So now we're going to do the primary flight feathers, primary wings here. And I'm going to start with this one right in here. And I want to take some tape and I want to knock off the back end of that white that I made. Take my stencil again. And you can see the shape that I just made. That's my feather right there. Do the next one. Just move it down a little bit. Same drill. And then one more. Primary flight feathers. Same thing on the other side. Knock your speculum off there. Now remember that feathers are crossing each other. So on your first one's going to be shorter than that anyway. Your first one's going to be, about right there. So you don't really have to worry about that one too much. But after your first one, then you got to start worrying about overlap. There you have it. We'll come back with a little dark brown. We'll darken up the middle of that big feather, just a touch, just a touch. Same thing with the wings, just to get a little bit more definition in them. We'll put a couple of dots right here on the tail. All that does, all I'm doing here is just a little bit of shadowing. Just makes it pop out a little bit more. And I'm going to take a little bit of my black and my dark brown. I'm just going to come down here on the rump and I'm just going to put some polka dots in. More dark brown up on the crown, on the eye. Okay, looks good. So, a few last little things. We need to do the speculum. So, again, we're just going to tape off right here to make a good hard line. Take our blue. Quick little shot of blue. This is completely unnecessary, but since they bothered to carve it into the bird, I'll go ahead and put it on. Herders kind of always had this little patch here, so I tend to do it on most herders. Now we're going to come back, we're going to peel the tape off the bill. Pyrrole orange makes these bills pretty loud. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some flat black. open up a can. And I'm just going to take a little flat brush here. Give me a fresh rag. I'm going to dip my rag in a little bit of my mineral spirits. Take a little black and I'm just kind of going to paint this on. Not heavy, just kind of quick and dirty. And as quick as I did that, take my rag and do away with it. And knocks off a little bit of the shine and a little bit of the loudness. And it fills in some of the low spots, including the nostrils. We'll do it again. Anytime you get a bill that gets a little bit loud on you, this little flat black trick works really well. Much better. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take that same brush. This is just an acid etch brush. I use them all the time. Dab it on the top of the lid there. Just going to apply the saddle to the bill. Just leave it kind of messy. That's how a duck looks anyway. We'll take a little finer brush here. Paint the nail on the bill. The other thing that they have is a lot of times up here around the face, they have little polka dots. So we'll put in a few little polka dots right up around the face. And before I totally do away with my black, you can use a paint pen. Paint pen works fine. X-Acto knife works fine. What I'm going to use today, this is actually for modeling in clay. It's just a little dull edge. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to dip it in my black, and I'm going to use this to create a very fine line between my white and my blue. Very, very fine line. May not even be able to see it, but it's there. Slowly rotate it around to the other side and do the same thing on the other side. With AV&X decoys, they have a lot of their preeners have big speculum patches that are visible. And this is just the bottom aspect of the distal aspect of one speculum feather that's kind of being displayed sticking out, and it's not even really anatomically accurate, but it's really just more of an aesthetic thing. But on those AV&X's, especially those preeners that Cabela's and Bass Pro sold for a few years, are great decoys. They look really good. I'll actually put purple and blue and highlighting in because you've got multiple stacked feathers, and that little knife blade trick is a really, really handy trick to have, because you can put a very fine line, and very fine lines on flocking are very hard to do because you're essentially painting on sand. So last thing we will do today, because it's going to have to dry, is we will paint the eyeball now that we're all done with everything else. And once it's all dry, we'll come back in a day or so and we'll put the pupil in and write our name on the bottom and put a string on it, and come October we'll shoot some birds. There you go. There is your dark to light Susie. This is the one we were using as the model. So did the feathers a little different along the back this time. I think they look great. You know, they're not all exactly the same. They don't come out all exactly identical, but looks pretty good to me. If I was a Drake mallard, I would try and engage in marital congress with it anyway. So if you have any questions, reach out. But that is that should get you guys going that want to really make these hens pop and come alive. Thanks for watching.